Hello Internet, welcome back to Let's Make Asteroids VR. We're picking back up with our grapple hook controller. And first off, we have to kind of start with a bit of an apology. So I was recording the video for Friday, and my computer crashed halfway through, which means all of the work is there, but due to the way my videos are encoded, all of the video that I had for that time was lost. So we're a bit ahead of where we were the last video. So I'm going to catch everybody up quick, and then we're going to finish this off, hopefully. So it actually is working slightly, and I can demonstrate that a little bit. So this is our sample grapple, and it's actually hooked up to our grapple controller here. We've got some new sample art for our thruster. Currently it's a little bit broken. It's overlaying a standard Vive controller on top of the model, which isn't exactly what I wanted, but we can shoot out a grapple there, and then I can fly over here. We actually changed, and we're now, instead of using complex joints, I started using springs because I think they were working better. And so this brings you in, I believe, to about 10 meters, and then it kind of holds you there. But I think we can fix this, because right now this feels terrible and it doesn't really work. So that's what we're going to be working on. The way it works is you press the home button. Oh geez, we must have hit something. So you're going to press the home button here on the top of the controller, and that is going to shoot out a grapple. It's a little bit easier. It goes down the body of the controller, so you can kind of get that projectile going, and then it hooks onto something, and then when you release, it goes away. So this way you can kind of control how you're holding onto things or not. We'll probably have to change the control as well, because that's probably going to be the in-game menu control. That's what that's kind of standard for, but that's what we have so far. So let's get to it. I'll show you how I got to this point, and then we can continue from there. So right now we have our projectile, and there's not much that's changed here, except that we send a projectile input message, and we can only travel a certain distance before we destroy ourselves. So this controls that travel distance, and then we track the distance traveled, and if it ends up being greater than the max range, we just destroy it. That's kind of temporary stuff for now. There's no like reeling back in, for example. That doesn't really happen. It will, but we're just not there yet. What else? We've got the grappling physics controller. And so all this does is it connects our two rigid bodies. So we've got the root rigid body, which will be our player. And this is assigned when you fire it. And then we attach these joints to that rigid body. And so the joints just do the rest of the work. They pull it in and do everything else. So that's actually that physics controller. These 5 lines of code are pretty much doing most of the hard work. By that I mean they're not really doing any work at all, but they're sort of doing things. We have 2 spring controllers here. I was kind of playing around with this. I don't think it's not working the way I want it to. I had a really light controller that was going to reel you all the way in, and then I had a heavier one that would reel you in if you got too far away. So 10 meters was what I had this set at. That didn't really work. So what we're going to be working on is actually having some mechanism to detect how far away the grappling hook is, set that as the max distance, and then reduce that over time. So it'll actually pull you in. That's the goal. What else is going on here? There's a few other fun things. We've got a grappling hook controller. I believe we worked on this a little bit, but this is our tying out to pretty much everything. We've got a root rigid body, and this is going to be our player. So that is assigned to each of our projectiles. And then all this does is fire it and then detect if we've hit something or not. or not if we've hit something or not, if we fired or not. And it handles creating and then destroying. This logic is a bit buggy. Sometimes it isn't destroying things, and I think it needs to be worked on a little bit more. But for the most part, it does what we need, so we're going to keep it until we have some spare time to fix it. What else? There's a few other things too. This is mostly the boring housekeeping stuff of catching everybody up, because the video that was supposed to show developing this stuff doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, so what we have here is we're going to shoot this. The projectile is going to hit something. It's going to send off this projectile impact that is going to be caught by this grappling physics controller. You can see it's caught here. And so that is going to actually attach each of the joints to the connected rigid body, or to the root rigid body, which will be, so when we impact, we actually connect the two to the player, and that will actually pull them in. Before that, nothing is happening. So what we can do then is actually, oh, that's not right. We want a public bool of impacted. And so if we hit something, we want the impacted to become true. And what this is going to do is it's going to signal to our joints to reel themselves in. So we want to do a void update. So we're just going to hook back into Unity's update system. And we want a reel speed. And so we are using springs, and we actually might be able to, let's actually try that. So I'm actually going to drop one of these springs because we don't need both of them. I think just sticking to one makes the most sense. I'm going to remove any max distance that there is. I'm going to up the spring strength, and then I'm going to change the damper to like 1,000. And that's going to reduce the force that it applies over time. So it takes a little bit longer for it to speed up. So theoretically, if I drop this back down to 1 and reattach that there, we should get pulled towards something when I hook on to something. And we'll figure out if that's good or whoops. Kind of hard to aim when you're not looking. Doesn't appear to work very well. Because we kind of get, the issues we get sort of stuck here. And I believe it's because we're auto, yeah. So our issue is we have this auto connected anchor thing. We don't want that. We want the connected anchor to be at the zeroed position. And so if I do this now, we should be able to point it somewhere over there, and we'll get pulled in. And so one of the other things that I've been struggling with is it doesn't really swing you around like I had intended. Actually, this did a pretty good job. But in the past, it would just kind of only apply your positional movement. So if you would just fly by something and then it would pull you straight back. And that's not what we want at all. We want you to, so if you grab like a sphere and you're swinging around it, we want you to swing all the way around it and then kind of stop. That's kind of why we moved away from the other things, because it wasn't working. It was just, it seemed like springs were the way to go. So I think we just have too much dampening on our stuff. So this is more tweaking. We might actually be able to just solve this with this. Oops. Yeah, that might be a bit too much. Okay. So the issue here is we're going to need some extra checks on this, because I have a feeling if we don't, people are going to get nauseous. That actually worked pretty well. So if we don't have checks here to help people or to prevent this from just going insane, it can get you going really fast. There were times when I was like orbiting the planet because I was moving so fast. And that's not a good thing. It's gonna just, people aren't gonna like that. I didn't really like that. You know, that's actually working pretty well. I'm kind of happy with that. It's so I think that we can, I don't think we need to actually adjust anything. So I think we can just play with this dampening stuff and then the spring, and it should go. And it seems to be holding everything correctly. So if that is the case, our job became a lot easier because we don't need this impacted thing. I can pull that out. I can pull out this update. Oops. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of both of those. And get rid of that. Which means we were pretty much done when it crashed. Which is a bummer, but we do have to still connect our rope. So, let's see, we're about 10 minutes in, so we can work on the rope and get that connected, and then we should be in a pretty good spot, actually. So, let's actually store the origin in our projectile. And that way we can draw everything back to itself. That's not going to work because our origin is, oops, that was very wrong. It's not going to work because our origin is going to disappear when this gets destroyed, which is when we impact something. So we've got this grapple rope controller and we're updating everything. It works. We tested this before. What we need to do now is we need to connect this from our point to our actual player position in world space. And that's hard. It's not particularly hard. It's just hard because we don't have a way to do that without physically tying it to something. So I don't want to do that. That's silly. Actually, I really don't like this either. So we're creating a grapple with a physics controller, which is actually updating everything. What we can do is do the rope, and this is gross. I'm gonna try to think of a better way to do this, but for now it'll work. We can take the grapple rope controller and attach it there. And then we want, if our projectile is not null, do that. If our rope is not null, then do that. Rope dot points 1 equal to something. What is the transform we're spawning at? The jetpack controller dot grapple hook origin. So if we set our 0.1 of our rope to the grapple hook origin and the rope dot line render dot number of positions to 2, that should handle that ish. Well, actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do rope dot points equals a new transform of 2, like so. We're going to do the rope dot points 0 equal to our grapples transform. So the 0 position is going to be our grapple origin, and then the other point is going to be here, is going to be where we shot it from. And that should be enough to keep it up to date. One thing I am going to test though is we're using Unity 5, which I'm curious, or 5.5, which I'm curious if it supports that, yeah, that's not going to work. So, no. Okay. So what this is it's null propagation. And it's an easier way of doing null checking if you're doing it shortly, like here. It would shorten it down to one line. We'd lose the log message, but we can find out another way to log it. So what this would do is it'd take our projectile. If it was not null, which is what this question mark period is going to do. So if it's not null, it will take the rigid body and continue down the chain. So it would set everything that way. It's really useful, especially in like WPF and XML or XAML. It's really nice for handling events because events can be null if nothing's subscribed to them. But with this, it's really easy to actually test everything because then it's just one line instead of at least 3. So that doesn't work. Unity's still fairly far behind with their C# implementation. I thought they were catching up with 5.5, but it looks like they're still a bit behind. Anyway, that's irrelevant, but this isn't. We can test this now. So we'll start there, turn our controller on, and we should have seen our controller bind to things, and it doesn't look like it did at all. Huh. Kind of confused with what's going on. Because that's off to... Oh, I bet I know what's going on. What? Because, yeah, it's not drawing in world space, which would be the issue. So this line renderer can be in local or world space. It's in local space right now. So you can see it's... If I move this, it moves with the object. If it was in world space, it would not do that. It would be over there because these coordinates are in world space. So this is good because it means that if we do that, that everything should work out. So now everything is going to be updated by our grappling rope controller, which we don't have attached to it, which is a problem. So one sec, let me actually attach that. Rope. There we go. So we've got our rope controller. Let's hook in our line render. And now these points can be 0 because if we go into this script, you'll see that it's actually going to initialize the line render number of positions and stuff based on those points. And we are handling this initialization of the points ourselves. So we don't need to worry too much about everything else. It should work. So if we try that again, we still don't get a line. So I'm going to pause this here. And this way we can hopefully see we have 0 positions in our grapple rope controller. Well, that's probably the issue. I mean, it sticks, but that's about it. Okay. So we need to figure out why this isn't working. I'm going to stick a debug log here. No rope on grapple. And we can start again and see what happens. Kind of confused why that didn't work. Huh. Okay. So it seems to be doing something, but it doesn't seem to be doing any of it right. Oh, were we not? Okay. So this is a silly reason for this to happen. I hadn't applied the prefab, so what was happening is we were looking at our existing grapple, which is right here. And that's going to have a points size of 0 because there won't be a rope because it's not attached to anything. That's a pretty good reason. And all the other ones weren't working because they didn't have a line renderer assigned, so it was just failing out and not doing anything. Which we should have seen somewhere. I'm thinking this is the issue. Not seeing those errors kind of makes me think it may not be it. But it looks like it, because we get a rope now. And it's kind of hard to tell where we're going because the headset is kind of back here somewhere, and I can't really control it, but we can try at least to attach to things. And we do kind of wrap around things. So everything... It seems at least like things are working more towards what we wanted. And that's good. We're kind of getting to that point. So I think this requires a lot more playtesting. And looks like we're getting... Oh, that's just a Unity. Those errors there, those are just Unity things. Apparently, they're not bad things. I don't know how I'm supposed to know that, but anyway, apparently it's fine. That's what the internet told me. So anyway, I'm going to leave this here. If you want to catch up on what was missed in the video that got corrupted, there is going to be there's source code out on GitHub, so you can go and check and browse all the code and pull it into your project and do whatever the heck you want. If you like the stuff, leave a comment below and let me know what you think. I'm curious what people are interested in, what they want to see, what doesn't make sense, what I can work more on. So if there's anything you want to see, let me know, and I'll see what I can do about it. But until then, see you, Internet.